the 1980s, American muscle cars ruled the streets, but many have been forgotten over time. From hidden marvels to powerful machines, these cars still have stories to tell. It's time to rediscover the muscle cars of the 80s. Number 12, 1982. Pontiac Trans Am Turbo. Not many people remember the Pontiac Trans Am Turbo of 1982. Yet this car had the speed, the power, and the bold style that could have made it a legend. But somehow, it faded into obscurity, overshadowed by other muscle cars of the era. So, what made it so fast? And why did it slip through the cracks of automotive history? Let's dive into the story of the forgotten fastest car. To begin with, the 1982 Pontiac Trans Am Turbo wasn't just another car from the 80s. It was a statement on wheels. It boasted a turbocharged V8 engine that could reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in a mere 9.1 seconds. With a quarter-mile time of just 16.9 seconds, it could leave many other cars in the dust. Yet, despite these impressive figures, the car was often overlooked. When the Trans Am Turbo hit the roads, it was clear that Pontiac had a vision. The turbocharged engine, though not as common at the time, gave the car a unique edge. The engineers had worked tirelessly to refine the engine, knowing that it would be a challenge to match the expectations of the muscle car market. Their hard work paid off, and the Trans Am Turbo quickly became one of the fastest cars of its time. But despite all this speed, the car was often overshadowed by the flashier, more well-known models. So why did it fade away from the spotlight? Part of the reason was that Pontiac wasn't the only player in the game. The late 70s and early 80s were a time of rapid change in the automotive industry. The market was flooded with new models, and the Trans Am Turbo, despite its performance, didn't stand out enough to grab the attention it deserved. Many car enthusiasts gravitated toward other cars that were either more stylish or offered more power. Another reason the Trans Am Turbo got lost in the shuffle was that it was a car of its time, and the world was changing. By the time the car was released, fuel economy and emission standards were becoming stricter. The turbo engine, while powerful, wasn't the most efficient when it came to fuel consumption. As the world began to prioritize fuel efficiency, cars like the Trans Am Turbo became less desirable. Despite all of this, the Trans Am Turbo still had its moment of glory. Its design was sharp, with air extractors on the fenders and a distinctive front end that screamed performance. It was also one of the last cars to feature the legendary Pontiac V8 engine before the brand shifted to more fuel-efficient powertrains. In conclusion, the 1982 Pontiac Trans Am Turbo may have been forgotten by many, but it was once a fast, powerful machine that captured the spirit of its era. It didn't have the lasting fame of some of its counterparts, but for those who remember, it remains a symbol of raw power and engineering excellence. Number 11, 1984, Chevrolet Corvette C4. There's a car that's easily forgotten by most, but it was once the fastest on the road. The 1984 Chevrolet Corvette C4. It was a car ahead of its time, a true revolution in design and performance. Yet despite its power and speed, it has faded from the memories of many car enthusiasts. Let's look back at what made it so special. The Corvette C4 could reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in just under 7 seconds. That's faster than most cars today. But back then, it was unheard of for a car at its price. It had a top speed of around 138 miles per hour, and it could fly through the quarter mile in 15.2 seconds at 90 miles per hour. These were numbers that could compete with some of the best cars in the world. But still, the C4 didn't get the widespread praise it deserved. Why didn't it get the recognition? Well, for one, the timing was off. The 1984 Corvette C4 was introduced when muscle cars were beginning to fade and the market was shifting. People weren't as interested in raw power as they once were. Fuel efficiency and comfort were becoming the focus, and the Corvette, despite its incredible performance, didn't fit into this new wave of cars. It didn't help that the competition was fierce, with European brands offering cars that had more luxury and prestige, leaving the Corvette looking a bit too American for some. Another reason the Corvette C4 didn't get the credit it deserved was its design. While the car itself was a significant improvement over previous models, it didn't have the bold, standout look that drew people to other cars. It had a more refined, understated appearance, which, at the time, wasn't as appealing to those who loved flashier, more aggressive designs. In fact, its clean lines and subtle styling were often overlooked in favor of cars that screamed for attention. Yet, even with its somewhat muted looks, the Corvette C4 was a marvel of engineering. It featured an independent suspension system that made it handle like a race car, and the interior was more comfortable and user-friendly than ever before. But people were still clinging to the past, comparing it to older, more iconic muscle cars. The Corvette C4 wasn't just about speed. It was about technology and handling, but that wasn't something everyone was ready to appreciate. Ultimately, the Corvette C4 was a car that was too advanced for its time. It wasn't as flashy as some of its competitors, but it was incredibly fast and reliable. However, because it didn't fit the mold of what people expected from a Corvette, it was easily overlooked. It may not have earned its place in the spotlight, but the C4 deserves recognition as one of the fastest cars of its era. It was the beginning of a new chapter for the Corvette, even if people didn't realize it then. Number 10, 1987, Buick GNX. In the world of fast cars, there's one that's often overlooked, even though it was a true powerhouse in its day. The 1987 Buick GNX. This car was not about elegance or subtlety, it was built to make an impact. With its turbocharged V6 engine, it was a car that could leave many so-called supercars in the dust. Yet despite its incredible speed, the GNX seems to have been forgotten by time. The GNX wasn't just fast, it was ridiculously fast. In just 4.7 seconds, it could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour. That's faster than many cars, even today. To put it into perspective, it could finish a quarter mile in 13.5 seconds at 102 miles per hour. These numbers could compete with some of the fastest cars of the era, yet the Buick GNX didn't get the same recognition as its rivals. It was in many ways too raw for its time. One reason it's forgotten is that the GNX wasn't built to handle corners like other performance cars. It wasn't about smooth turns or perfect road grip. The GNX was a car that preferred straight lines and brute force. It didn't have the finesse of some of its competitors, and as a result, it didn't leave as lasting an impression on car enthusiasts. Its suspension was upgraded, but it still couldn't match the agility of cars that were more balanced. It rattled over bumps and struggled when the road wasn't perfect. Another factor in its fading legacy was its design. The Buick GNX was intimidating, with its all-black exterior and aggressive look. It wasn't meant to be pretty or stylish. It was meant to show off its power. Inside, the car had a no-frills approach, with simple but supportive seats and a dashboard that wasn't trying to impress anyone with luxury. It was a car that prioritized function over form, which may have turned some potential buyers off. It wasn't the kind of car people could proudly show off at a fancy dinner, but it sure could dominate a race. Despite all of its flaws, the GNX was an absolute monster when it came to speed. It was made for those who appreciated raw power more than anything else. The car was a true performance machine, but its lack of refinement and its noisy, rough ride made it hard for it to gain widespread love. It wasn't a car you'd want to take on a long, comfortable road trip, but for a drag race, it was unbeatable. By the time the GNX was released, many car enthusiasts were already moving on to the next big thing. The car was no longer the fastest, and its rough edges made it seem outdated in an era that was starting to favor refinement. The GNX was left behind. But for those who remember it, it will always be a symbol of raw American power that couldn't quite keep up with the changing times. Number 9, 1986, Ford Mustang SVO. It's hard to believe that the 1986 Ford Mustang SVO has been forgotten by many, especially considering how fast it was. At a time when performance was king, the SVO was a contender that could rival the big names on the road, but somehow it faded into history. Back in the mid-'80s, I had the chance to get behind the wheel of this incredible machine, and to say I was impressed is an understatement. The Mustang SVO wasn't your typical Mustang. While other models roared with V8 power, the SVO stood out with its turbocharged 140 cubic inch four-cylinder engine. Despite having fewer cylinders, this car packed a punch, making 200 horsepower and hitting 60 miles per hour in just 6.8 seconds. On top of that, it could reach a top speed of 144 miles per hour. Impressive for its time. But the SVO wasn't just about speed. It was about precision handling and balance. With features like four-wheel disc brakes and special suspension components, the SVO handled corners like a professional race car. Unfortunately, despite all its power and performance, the SVO came out at the wrong time. The car's target audience, mainly drivers in the 80s, wanted raw power they could feel immediately. The Mustang GT with its V8 engine was the preferred choice. It wasn't that the SVO wasn't fast, it was just that the instant power from the V8 engines was more appealing. So, even though the SVO could hold its own on the track, it failed to capture the public's attention in the way Ford had hoped. The Mustang SVO's legacy didn't end with its production. Enthusiasts like Tom Leslie still remember it fondly. Tom bought a low-mileage SVO in 1989 and made it a project car, pushing its limits in both road racing and drag racing. After adding modifications like a bigger turbocharger, improved fuel system, and a new camshaft, Tom saw the car's power soar to an impressive 330 horsepower. With modifications like these, the Mustang SVO was a force to be reckoned with, able to compete with some of the fastest cars of the era. Sadly, by the time the SVO's production run ended in 1986, it was clear Ford's attention had already shifted elsewhere. The company was preparing to replace the Mustang with the Mazda-based Probe, and the SVO's unique performance-focused features were soon overshadowed by new models. The SVO's blend of speed, handling, and technological advancements seemed like the future, but it was too early to gain widespread recognition. Even though the Mustang SVO didn't last long, its influence carried over to later models. Features like the arrow nose and four-wheel disc brakes showed up in future Mustangs, proving that the SVO wasn't just a car lost to time. It was a visionary piece of automotive history that laid the groundwork for the Mustangs we know today. Number 8, 1987, Pontiac Firebird Trans Am GTA. In the late 1980s, the Pontiac Firebird Trans Am GTA emerged as a car that demanded attention. It wasn't just another version of the Firebird. It was the peak of performance for its time. And yet somehow, it has become one of the forgotten fast cars. This car was built for driving enthusiasts who wanted serious power paired with sophisticated handling, but it never quite reached the fame it deserved. The Firebird Trans Am GTA came with a special surprise, a massive 350 cubic inch V8 engine that was taken from the Corvette, though with a few tweaks of its own. This engine delivered a solid 210 horsepower and a whopping 315 pounds-feet of torque. That might sound like a lot now, but back then, it was a game changer. The car could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 6.8 seconds, a feat that could make any car enthusiast smile. Add to that a quarter-mile time of just 15.2 seconds, and the GTA proved to be an absolute performer on the street. Despite its impressive capabilities, the Firebird Trans Am GTA seemed to slip under the radar. Why? Well, while other cars were getting attention for their aggressive designs and turbocharged engines, the Trans Am GTA quietly made its mark with its sophisticated yet understated performance. It didn't rely on flashy decals or crazy paint jobs to prove its worth. Instead, it let the performance speak for itself with a standard 4-speed automatic transmission and an array of features that made it as comfortable as it was fast. From the special seats with adjustable lumbar support to the WS6 performance handling package, the GTA offered more than just raw power. Another reason the GTA may have been forgotten is that, despite its power, it was overshadowed by cars that had more hype around them at the time. Muscle cars were still in their prime, but the market was also shifting and many buyers began looking for cars that were more practical or cost-efficient. The Trans Am GTA was a powerful car, but it was a car that required a specific kind of driver, someone who appreciated its performance rather than its looks or trends. When you think about it, the Firebird Trans Am GTA was Pontiac's ultimate performance car of that generation. Yet its legacy didn't last as long as it should have. The combination of a massive engine, smart handling, and a list of features that made it stand out should have made it a standout. But it became just another forgotten car from the past. It was a true performer, ahead of its time, yet lost in the shuffle of the evolving car industry. Number 7, 1983, Chevrolet Camaro Z28. Once in a while, a car comes along that captures attention for a moment, but then fades into the background. The 1983 Chevrolet Camaro Z28 is one of those cars. When it was introduced, it was a force to be reckoned with, but today, it's often overlooked. This particular Z28, however, has been taken to the next level with some serious upgrades, making it an exceptional example of what Chevy's iconic pony car could really do. What makes this Camaro special is the heart of its powertrain. This isn't just any regular Z28, it's been fitted with a supercharged 454 cubic inch V8 engine, producing around 600 horsepower. With a 400 turbo transmission and a Dana 60 rear end with 4.11 gears, this Camaro was built for speed. It can easily hit 60 miles per hour in just 8.8 seconds, and its quarter-mile time is an impressive 16.7 seconds. But the modifications don't stop there. The car has a custom grind camshaft, frame ties, and even a roll cage with swing-out bars. All these enhancements make the Z28 a real performer on the track or the street. Despite its impressive performance, the 1983 Camaro Z28 often gets overshadowed by other muscle cars of its era. In an age when power and speed were celebrated, the Z28 sometimes failed to grab the spotlight. The addition of fuel injection and automatic transmissions in the third-generation Camaro made it more accessible to a wider range of drivers, but the focus was often on the flashier, more mainstream models. Even with the late introduction of the high-output V8 engine in April of 1983, only 3,223 of these L69 V8 engines were sold during the model year, meaning this version of the Z28 was rarer than many people realize. Yet, the Camaro Z28, with its refined performance and unique modifications, holds a special place in the hearts of enthusiasts. Its four-wheel power disc brakes, air conditioning, and modern amenities such as power windows and tilt steering wheels gave it a blend of muscle and comfort that was ahead of its time. But while this car delivered impressive top speeds, up to 128 miles per hour, its quiet departure from the spotlight left it forgotten by many. The truth is, the Camaro Z28 is a car that deserved more attention than it got. With its speed, power, and a host of upgrades, this Camaro should have been a contender in the muscle car wars of the 80s. Instead, it faded away, becoming just another forgotten fast car in history's rearview mirror. Number 6, 1989. Dodge Shelby Dakota. When we think of muscle cars, most people picture fast sports cars or flashy sedans. But there's one forgotten vehicle that turned the truck world on its head in the late 80s, the 1989 Dodge Shelby Dakota. It was a pickup that broke all the rules, bringing speed and power to a vehicle usually built for hauling and work. But despite its impressive performance, the Shelby Dakota has faded into history, often overlooked in favor of its more famous muscle car counterparts. What made the Shelby Dakota stand out was its combination of utility and muscle. Dodge had already established a reputation for creating powerful vehicles, but this was something completely new. Carroll Shelby, known for creating some of the most iconic performance cars, took a small, compact pickup and turned it into a muscle truck. With a fuel 318 cubic inch V8 engine, the Shelby Dakota produced 175 horsepower and 270 pounds-feet of torque. It was fast for its time, reaching 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 8.7 seconds, and completing the quarter mile in 16.4 seconds at 82.6 miles per hour. For a pickup, these numbers were pretty impressive. Despite its performance, the Shelby Dakota didn't last long. Only 1,475 trucks were made, and production ended at the close of the 1989 model year. In total, just 995 of them were painted exotic red, with the remaining 480 in bright white. Though the truck was a hit with enthusiasts, it never reached the popularity of other muscle vehicles. This is one of the reasons the Shelby Dakota is now largely forgotten. The truck came with several unique features that set it apart from the average Dakota. Its blacked-out bumpers, grille, and fender flares gave it a tough look, while the body-colored light bar and Shelby graphics made sure everyone knew it was something special. Inside, the Shelby Dakota had a sporty, custom interior with a red bench seat, a leather-wrapped steering wheel, and a tachometer, making it feel more like a performance car than a work truck. Sadly, after just 1 year, the Shelby Dakota disappeared. It was an early example of what would become the muscle truck craze of the 90s, but its brief production run meant it never gained the fame it deserved. It was a powerful, fast truck that could hold its own against any sports car of the time, but it was forgotten too soon. Even today, it's hard to find one on the road or even in car collections, making it one of the most overlooked speed machines of its time. Number 5, 1984, Dodge Daytona Turbo Z. In the mid-80s, Chrysler introduced a car that could have changed the way we look at American muscle cars. It was called the 1984 Dodge Daytona Turbo Z, and it promised to deliver a new kind of performance to car enthusiasts. The Daytona Turbo Z was the first front-wheel drive muscle car, combining speed, handling, and style, all in one vehicle. It was a bold move by Chrysler, and for a brief moment, it captured the hearts of those seeking something different. Yet, despite its impressive specs and unique positioning, this car has been largely forgotten. Right from the start, the Daytona Turbo Z impressed with its acceleration. It could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 8.2 seconds, a time that was remarkable for the era. The quarter-mile time of 16.4 seconds at 82 miles per hour showed that the Daytona could keep up with some of the best cars of the time. On top of that, its top speed of 128 miles per hour made it a force to be reckoned with, especially for a car that wasn't even a rear-wheel drive classic. Despite its speed, the Daytona Turbo Z was never fully appreciated, and it soon faded into the background as other muscle cars stole the spotlight. What really set the Daytona apart was its ability to handle corners with confidence. Chrysler had worked hard to make sure that the car felt stable at high speeds, and it didn't disappoint. The Daytona Turbo Z's steering was precise, and it held its balance well through tight turns. It had the kind of composure that you wouldn't expect from a front-wheel drive car, and that made it stand out in the crowded performance car market. It was an example of American engineering pushing boundaries, but sadly, not many people recognized it at the time. Another aspect that made the Daytona Turbo Z memorable was its design. The interior was a mix of European and Japanese influences, offering both comfort and support. The seats were designed with lumbar and thigh support, providing a more comfortable ride than many of its rivals. On the outside, it had a sleek, aerodynamic look that made it stand out from the typical American sports car. However, despite all of these strengths, the Daytona Turbo Z never gained the recognition it deserved. In the end, the 1984 Dodge Daytona Turbo Z was a car ahead of its time, blending performance and style in a way that few others could match. Unfortunately, it didn't get the attention it needed to secure a lasting place in history. As a result, it has been largely forgotten, overshadowed by other, more famous muscle cars. Number 4, 1986 Ford Thunderbird Turbo Coupe. Back in the 80s, Ford introduced a car that could easily have changed the way we think about American performance vehicles: the 1986 Ford Thunderbird Turbo Coupe. While it didn't get as much attention as its V8-powered competitors, this turbocharged four-cylinder Thunderbird was a force to be reckoned with. It had speed, power, and style, but somehow, over time, it was forgotten. When you first drove the Turbo Coupe, the difference was obvious. The car could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 9 seconds, which was impressive for a car of its size. It could complete a quarter mile in just 16.5 seconds at 80 miles per hour, making it faster than many of the other vehicles on the road. Despite its turbocharged four-cylinder engine, the Thunderbird delivered impressive performance, all while providing a smooth ride. As you put the pedal to the metal, the engine came alive. With 10 pounds of boost, the 240 cubic inch engine produced 145 horsepower, giving the car plenty of power for its size. Its performance was comparable to other cars with much larger engines. And yet, despite these impressive stats, the Thunderbird Turbo Coupe didn't become the household name it deserved to be. Maybe it was because it was overshadowed by more famous muscle cars at the time. But the truth is, it had the potential to rival them in both speed and style. One of the reasons this car stood out was its handling. The reworked Fox platform gave it a great road feel and cornering ability. Even though it wasn't the fastest in terms of raw horsepower, it could tackle corners with ease, making it just as fun to drive as other, more expensive performance cars. Its combination of good handling, smooth ride, and impressive power made it a car that could have been a real contender if only more people had recognized it. Despite all of this, the 1986 Ford Thunderbird Turbo Coupe has been largely forgotten. It didn't quite fit the classic muscle car mold, and it never gained the fame it deserved. It was a car ahead of its time, blending performance and style in ways that many of its contemporaries couldn't match. In the end, the Thunderbird Turbo Coupe was a car that deserved more recognition than it got, and it's now one of the forgotten fastest cars of its era. Number 3, 1985, Buick Regal T-Type. The 1985 Buick Regal T-Type was a car that didn't make much noise, but definitely made an impact on the road. With a turbocharged 231 cubic inch engine, this car could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 7.5 seconds. Not bad for a vehicle that didn't exactly scream for attention. It was fast, but its subtle design often meant that it got overlooked by most enthusiasts. Despite its quiet appearance, the Regal T-Type had a lot to offer. It completed the quarter mile in 15.7 seconds at 87 miles per hour, numbers that held their own against other cars of its time. What made it even more remarkable was how smooth and well-balanced the ride was. It wasn't just a car that could go fast. It was a car that was fun to drive. However, the T-Type's lack of flash was a double-edged sword. While it was a powerhouse under the hood, its understated design meant it didn't have the same street presence as some of its louder competitors. In a world of eye-catching muscle cars and attention-grabbing sports cars, the Buick was often passed over. It didn't get the attention it deserved, even though its performance was on par with some of the best cars of the era. The 1985 Regal T-Type didn't have the aggressive marketing of other cars, and it was overshadowed by the more popular Grand National. But for those who knew about it, the T-Type was a well-kept secret. It was quick, agile, and comfortable, with a fuel efficiency that was rare for a turbocharged car at the time. Even with its low-key image, it was a true performer. In the end, the Buick Regal T-Type faded into obscurity for many, even though it had the potential to be remembered as one of the fastest cars of the 80s. Its turbocharged engine, smooth handling, and impressive speed made it a car to be reckoned with. But without the flashy look or heavy promotion, it remained a forgotten hero. A car that could do everything right, but just didn't get the recognition it deserved. Number 2, 1982 Chevrolet Camaro Berlinetta. The Chevrolet Camaro Berlinetta, introduced in 1982, was a product of a challenging time for performance cars. The gas crisis had left many automakers scrambling to create cars that were more fuel efficient and less focused on raw power. The Berlinetta trim was Chevy's response to the shift, aiming to combine the style of the Camaro with a more comfortable, luxury-focused approach. It wasn't built for speed in the traditional sense, yet it still managed to attract attention for what it was: a Camaro with a softer ride and a more refined interior. However, the Berlinetta's performance didn't match the reputation of the Camaro name. Powered by either a 171 cubic inch V6 or a 305 cubic inch V8 engine, the Berlinetta wasn't about mind-blowing acceleration. The test car with the larger V8 engine could only manage a 0 to 60 miles per hour time of around 10 seconds. For comparison, that was slower than many of the more affordable sedans of the time. And the quarter-mile time? 19.4 seconds. with a top speed of just 70 miles per hour. The Camaro Berlinetta wasn't winning any drag races, but it still had its charm. Even with these unimpressive stats, the Berlinetta had something that set it apart: style. Its front-end redesign made it look less aggressive and more refined, in line with the softer, luxury-focused direction Chevy was taking. Finished in black with special 14-inch wheels, the Berlinetta had a classy look that many buyers of the time could appreciate. The interior was also focused on comfort, offering options like power windows, power locks, and an AM/FM cassette radio. It was a far cry from the traditional muscle car, but that wasn't necessarily a bad thing for those looking for a more relaxed driving experience. Apart from its shortcomings in performance, the Berlinetta was mechanically sound and offered a smooth ride. Its V8 engine, paired with a 3-speed automatic transmission, was capable of cruising comfortably down the road. While the Berlinetta wasn't fast by any stretch of the imagination, it offered a unique combination of luxury and Camaro heritage that made it stand out in its own way. Number 1, 1985 Chrysler LeBaron GTS Turbo. In 1985, Chrysler introduced a car that had the power to surprise. The Chrysler LeBaron GTS Turbo was part of an ambitious effort to blend European-style design with American practicality. This car offered something unusual for its time: a turbocharged engine, front-wheel drive, and a sleek hatchback design. With the combination of good looks and some solid performance, the LeBaron GTS Turbo seemed to be everything a car enthusiast could ask for. It was fast, fun, and affordable. Now, let's talk about speed. This was no slouch in terms of acceleration. It could reach 60 miles per hour in just 8.3 seconds, which was quite impressive for a 4-door sedan in the mid-80s. The quarter-mile time of 16.2 seconds at 84 miles per hour also showed it had real performance capabilities. The top speed? An impressive 115 miles per hour, making it one of the faster options available at the time. Yet despite these respectable numbers, the LeBaron GTS Turbo didn't quite get the attention it deserved. The reason why this car didn't stay in the spotlight might be because Chrysler had a lot of different models with similar names, and the LeBaron GTS Turbo just got lost in the mix. It was part of the broader LeBaron family, which had its own range of variations. Most people didn't realize that GTS Turbo was a whole different beast, offering turbocharged performance alongside the usual LeBaron comfort. Chrysler's other cars often stole the limelight, and the GTS Turbo never really got the recognition it deserved. On the outside, the Learon GTS Turbo was stylish and ahead of its time. The hatchback design allowed for a practical cargo area while still looking sporty. But the real magic was under the hood, or rather the turbocharged 135 cubic inch engine, which made it quicker than most cars in its class. The driving experience was good, though not perfect. The suspension could be a bit rough at times, and the car's body flexed a little when pushed hard. Still, it felt solid compared to many American cars of that era. What made the LeBaron GTS Turbo even more special was its thoughtful interior. It had comfortable seating, a well-designed dashboard with 6 round dials, and a clean layout that made everything easy to read and use. The car was an honest attempt at combining American comfort with European handling, but it didn't quite achieve the perfect balance. Still, it came close enough to stand out, even if the world never gave it its due recognition. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, comment, and subscribe for more amazing car stories waiting to be revealed.